Also, is the person who never wanted a child now going to have a child for $5,000? The person that you want having a child? Because I sort of feel like no. And we, in my opinion, are motivated to prop up the Ponzi scheme of Social Security. We can't really do that if the pyramid gets inverted.
Never thought about it like that. Holy shit.
So, how are we going to continue to sustain ourselves as a society? People probably have to keep having children. Anyway, there was discussion of how to stimulate that.
And it's funny because we both had two different reactions. You kind of pissed your pants and thought it was what the hell? And I was like, if for people who want kids and are trying to have kids and or will soon be having kids, it's like, okay. I saw it, I'm like, this is kind of nice. But to our conversation offline, there are so many other ways to actually make it better and feasible and long-term helpful. So if I do have a kid in the near future, I will happily take the 5,000 to pay for my hospital bill. But in real life, if you're actually wanting to have the population make more kids, I think we've got a list of other good ideas that may work better.
It felt like if you didn't want to have a child and someone said, I'll change your mind, here's $5,000.
Right.
It's sort of like indicating to somebody, I know you can't afford a Ferrari, but what if I give you $500 to buy this Ferrari?
I
Also,
could,
P.S., you have to make all of the payments, and if you don't take care of it, we'll put you in jail. I don't
yeah.
want a kid for any other reason than a $5,000 check.
Well, that's bad. That's not good. I will say it's a jump into my first one. It's stressful. See, you're looking at it from different points of views because I hadn't thought about that. I looked it up though, according to ChatGPT, the average cost for just the first year, depending on who you are, where you live, cost of living, blah 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 blah. Bougie you want to be 16,000 to 26,000. So 16 to 26,000 is the average cost for the first year of life. So maybe 5K would be great, but why not look at a tax break to help offset this expenses? Obviously, a child is a dependent, so there's little things like that, but it does make a huge difference. Like there should be an actual like child tax break of some sort, right?
That totally makes sense. Here's my number one thing. Instead of $5,000, how about we give and require paid parental leave, including adoptions? We're wildly behind on this. I think we're one of the only countries that still thinks that this is up for debate. 12 weeks of unpaid FMLA seems like the stupidest thing I've ever heard of in my entire life. And the federal government did allow for 12 weeks of paid parental leave, but only for federal jobs. Hoping for everyone that that doesn't change. I have firsthand seen what a big difference that makes in some of the men that I know being off for 12 weeks with their new baby. Completely different level of engagement and bonding that they would not have otherwise had the opportunity to have. Also, side note, Sweden, I think they get over
A
400
year.
days off.
Yeah, they at least get a year. Crazy. I'll
I
be
don't expect us to be
baby
able to pay for that, but
wild. I completely agree. I think the biggest, easiest thing to do would be to shift the amount of time off that we had and obviously paid. I think a minimum of 6 months for the mom required. And then for the dad, I'm being very conservative and said 4 weeks, but I think it should be 12 weeks minimum for the dad. Because, like, most jobs give 2 weeks. What are you going to do in 2 weeks?
nothing.
You're going to have to wipe my ass and then go back to work?
And there's tons of jobs that give nothing. But if FMLA were
Yeah.
paid,
Uh-huh.
maybe that would sound a little bit more sustainable.
Ugh.
So how about instead of $5,000, we give people daycare vouchers? Because even people who are making a decent income, I can speak for myself, would be worried about cutting a check for daycare. The way I figured it conservatively, $5,000 would be maybe 5 months of daycare, but not
Yeah.
even that probably if you're talking about infant daycare. And if
Yep.
you accidentally have twins, fuck you.
That's why people stay home because they can't afford it. Okay, which brings me to my next point. Can we go back? I don't know how we're going to do this. What's the actual specific path to get here? I don't know, but let's figure it out. Let's shift the economy and the cost of living back to a place where only one person has to work and sustain their home and expensive, so one could stay at home with the kids.
Amen.
That would be nice.
Instead of 5Gs, what if we gave people diaper vouchers? I'm really out here with the vouchers. You could use them on the real diapers. You could use them on the reusable diapers. I don't care, but I would argue that even that would be a major help to people. And again, you're getting a voucher. So the person that's getting that is not probably, unless they're shady, going to go sell vouchers for cash and then use their kid as a cash cow.
Yeah, that would be really shitty.
I'm
It should be like,
trying to prevent the dark side things from happening because that's where my brain goes.
yes, it's almost like, yeah, it has to be bought for that certain thing. Okay, which I didn't use the word vouchers, but I will steal it. Basically, a monthly allowance. What I had said specifically was a formula, like program, like discounted formula for the first year of life. Because holy balls, it is expensive. Like, it's so expensive.
I heard. Here's another idea. How about we cover midwife care on health insurance without a copay so that moms can have a choice in their prenatal care instead of throwing money at the problem?
And I will add to that and say health insurance should cover 100% of any prenatal services, any birth services, and any postnatal and postpartum services, which could include up to and more pelvic floor therapy, lactation specialists, and mental health therapy. Like, there's so much crap in there that it should be 100% covered.
Amen. Next, I continue on this tangent to say, how about we make doulas covered by health insurance so that mothers and their families can be supported emotionally and spiritually during the whole process because nothing solves an emotional wound better than just shoving cash in it.
It's just hemorrhaged cash after we've hemorrhaged our life. Okay. On a different note, if we're going to talk about 100% coverage and being fair and helpful, I think fertility planning and anyone struggling to have babies, 100% coverage for any fertility treatment because that shit is also terribly expensive. And that takes a lot of people out of even being able to have kids.
Why
So
not?
sad.
Next in line, I have the idea that how about instead of $5,000, we provide wraparound support following childbirth because many people no longer have the village that they used to have. If supportive services were part of covered OBGYN care that was reimbursable by insurance, practitioners would be encouraged to do it as part of their normal thing. Give incentives to providers who provide these kinds of services for Medicaid patients because they typically don't have the financial ability to private pay for what you were saying, lactation services and all of those types of things. And yes, this shit might cost more than $5,000, but if you want to help set up families for success and create longevity and stable homes, I would argue you are maybe going to have to invest a little bit more on the front end.
Yep. Kind of side tangent, but if we're talking about wanting people to have babies, I think money and debt is the biggest stress. So why not alleviate some of people's debts and wipe out student loans if you're going to have a baby? Once the baby's born, you send in their certificate and you say, wipe my student loan debt off the table. Wouldn't that be
Right?
crazy?
That would be insane.
That's
How
way
about
more than $5,000.
yeah, right, for most of us. How about we take that $5,000 and use it to brainstorm ways to give people pre-birth time off so that not only are parents getting paid time off after the baby comes, but they're getting time to nest and prepare their home ahead of time. So they actually feel prepared instead of just thinking that they have to work up until the moment that their water breaks in order to afford life for 12 weeks of unpaid leave after.
That's amazing. I love that. Okay, my last one is we've kind of already touched on it with the paid time off and the leave, but what I'll say is I feel like there needs to be a more flexible, long hybrid or remote work options where the first year we kind of like ease back into work instead of just jumping right into it and expect it to go back to being all crazy, crazy. It's like, can we start off with, okay, 6 months maternity leave, and the next 3 months work from home, then the next 3 months is hybrid, and then you come back, whatever it is. So that would be nice.
Yes, to piggyback off of that, I also said, what if instead of shitting all over working from home, we encourage telework and working when you can, not just forcing people to do their job within a prescribed number of hours. What if you just have to get the work that you need to get done and you do that within whatever 40 hours are accommodatable in your life? So if you are up at 2 a.m. for a feed-in, who cares if you're signing in and doing your work? For the jobs that that's possible in, what if we allowed for flexible work for new parents so that they could actually fit that into their lives? Also, instead of $5,000, how about we reform insurance companies so that people don't feel like their health care coverage is a major risk factor forever and ever and ever for themselves and their child. And last but not least, let's just not insult mothers and families in general by pretending that paying somebody $5,000 is going to help them have a baby. So if you're only going to have $5,000, if you're only going to have a baby to get $5,000 from the government, I go back to, is I really the kind of person that we want to have a baby? Because that feels incorrect.
Oh my gosh.
So thank you. Maybe, and also I'd like to say if this whole thing was just a troll to get America talking about childbirth and how do we stimulate people to have more families, A+ job. Excellent, excellent. The conversation has started. Wonderful tactic. I'm always here for a troll. Maybe this is phase 1 of brainstorming. We've identified a problem correctly, and now maybe all of us can put our little brainies together and figure out how we can make a cultural shift to make child rearing something that is maybe actually accessible without feeling like you're about to dive nose first off of a cliff.
100%. I love it.
Statement.
Goodbye.